Hey there everyone, welcome back to another great video. Today's video is all about games that I wish were backwards compatible on the Xbox 360. Now we all know that Microsoft has ceased the backwards compatibility program, and that is a bit of a bummer, but at the same time, it doesn't do any harm to actually go out there and make kind of a wish list of some games that I would personally like to see come back and be available via backwards compatibility. Some of them possibly could be at some point because Microsoft has been making a lot of purchases lately, and buying some of these IP and buying some of these licenses and things like that probably isn't as expensive as one might think, but this should be a fun video. And if you guys are joining me for the first time, please like the video if you enjoy it and possibly consider subscribing, because that helps my channel out tremendously and would definitely mean a lot to me. So I want to get started. This should be a fun video, so hang on to your seats. Let's get started. Starting off my list today is Transformers War for Cybertron and Transformers Fall of Cybertron. Yeah, a double shot of great Transformers games coming right at you. Now, these are some of the best, if not the best, Transformers games that you can find anywhere, and I would just love for them to become backwards compatible. I know that Microsoft actually owns Activision now, and so Hasbro has actually said that they would be willing to work with Microsoft to get these games back for sale, which I think would be huge. And I understand that the multiplayer doesn't work anymore for these, but the campaign for me is honestly where it's all at to begin with. Now, these games look very similar, but they play kind of similar as well, and they're very interesting because one of them you can play, you're just doing the Autobot thing or whatever. On the other one, there's two different campaigns. There's an Autobot and a Decepticon campaign, and I just feel like they've done a good job with this. The voice acting to be able to transform, kind of getting an idea of what the Transformers were doing before we all came to kind of know and love them. I think that's really an awesome kind of thing for them to kind of do. And the games really stand out as fantastic games on their own, with some incredible storytelling. It's got some great action. There's some great gameplay to it as well. Like, I feel like not enough people talk about the actual gameplay. They really nailed it in this with the over-the-shoulder type camera angle and things like that. So, yeah, these are ones that definitely, I hope, and there still is an outside chance that they could become backwards compatible. I know some of you guys are probably with me on this. It's just these games are much loved. We see people talk about them all the time. Some of my favorites, I go back and play them a lot as well. Would love to see these games come to the backwards compatibility program if Microsoft ever decides to kind of step up and, do them again. Next up is Chronicles of Riddick, Assault on Dark Athena, and this is one that I hear a lot of people kind of talk about and kind of reminisce and wish that this was backwards compatible. The original Escape from Butcher Bay on the Xbox was incredible. If you guys are familiar with the Riddick games, they're also kind of a takeoff of the movie, and they sort of are in the same timeline. They're canon, according to Vin Diesel as well, who does the voice work of Riddick. And you guys know him. Obviously he's very popular and does the Fast and the Furious stuff, but these Riddick movies and the Riddick games are really incredible on their own if you like sci-fi and stuff like that. The Chronicles of Riddick, this game is actually a sequel to Escape from Butcher Bay, which was sort of included along with this as well. So basically, you're kind of getting two games for one deal, and I would love this because I feel like this is an underrated gem, and I've talked about this game previously. I really love the way that they've kind of handled this game, and it's kind of that first person game, but it'll switch into third person for various acts and things like that, which I think is really cool. Well written, well acted, stealth action. We don't really see this type of game that much anymore, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why I hope that it would come back to the backwards compatibility program. But this is definitely one of the ones that I think a lot of us can agree on that we hope comes to the backwards compatibility program before it's all said and done. One of the most fun racing games that I've ever played is Blur, and I know a lot of people have heard about this game and a lot of people love this game. I wish that many people loved this game when it originally came out, because it was kind of a forgotten about game. I've always put this on my hidden gems list. If you like sort of arcade racing games that are more realistic but also sort of like a cross between Mario Kart, because there's items that you can pick up and, attack the other players with and things like that. I think that that is something that we need more of these days. It's really just a great experience to play this game. And I think, right now, there's a ton of people that would love to play this game. And to be honest with you, I think if this game were backwards compatible, which I don't know why it's not, to be honest with you, it would probably help bring down the cost of some of these games. I know that's the case with some of these games, but this was just a fun game to play and kind of experience. Like I said, a realistic kind of look, but a arcade feel, and an arcade kind of an experience, almost with Mario Kart kind of mixed in there. I know it's one of my favorite racing games, and a lot of people talk about this game now as a hidden gem. Absolutely highly recommend. I hope that they would bring this one back if they ever do backwards compatibility again. Now, next up is another twofer. We're going to go with Marvel's Iron Man and Iron Man 2. Now, I know what you're thinking, that these games are probably just shovelware or whatever, and to be fair, the first Iron Man game isn't great. I think it's probably pretty average, but the second one is actually much better. And believe it or not, these games sold pretty well. There was a time on the Xbox 360 where we got quite a bit of the Marvel games. Don't you guys miss that a little bit? I know sometimes they weren't the best games, but looking back, there was a decent Captain America game that was actually voiced by Chris Evans. There was, these Iron Man games. There was a Thor game. There was a lot of interesting superhero games that we were getting as fans of these movies and things, and we just don't get that anymore. I know that a lot of the properties and things are expensive to kind of rent. We get good Spider-Man games or whatever, and I think that's cool, but where's all the game tie-ins with the movies and stuff like what we used to get back in the day? That there was so much fun to kind of just go through and play. The first Iron Man game is kind of an origin story, and it's okay. It can be a little bit clunky at times and things like that. Obviously, not the best graphics, but still an interesting kind of take on the first movie as well. And the second one, I think, kind of refines it a little bit better, is a little bit easier to play, and a better game overall. I think just Sega did a pretty good job with this. Believe it or not, Sega made the game, and again, these games sold millions of copies, so you would figure that they could possibly be backwards compatible, since all we've gotten recently was that Avengers game, which wasn't that great. We did get a good Guardians of the Galaxy game, but yeah, overall, I would love to see both of these games become backwards compatible and, have people be able to give them a try. And they're not very expensive games either, so that's cool as well. And next up, we have a game called Wet. Yeah, that's the name of the game. And yeah, they used to get away with things like that back in the day. You could have attractive women and fun games that just focused on like the gameplay and having a good time, and nobody was too bothered about it. So, at the end of the day, I feel like this is one of those things that Microsoft could definitely bring back, because this was published by Bethesda. Now, while it wasn't made by Bethesda, they own the IP, which means Microsoft actually owns the IP, which is a very cool thing. Elijah Dushku does the voice of the main character in this, and it plays out very arcadey, kind of an old school thing. It's not too difficult. I actually only just got into this game kind of recently, and it's an action-packed game, over the top, just a lot of fun, and I really hope that they would bring this back to the backwards compatibility program. This is one of those more expensive games. It's not overly expensive, but this game can cost you between 30 and 50 bucks, depending on when you get it. And so again, putting it backwards compatible could solve some of these issues, and plus it's just a fun game to play on the 360. And a guilty pleasure of mine is WWE wrestling, and so we have WWE All Stars. Now, what's cool about this is it's an arcade, over-the-top game that sort of pits old school wrestlers against newer wrestlers, and newer wrestlers at the time of the game when it released, so not new by the standards that we have today in 2024. But this is such a fun game to play. I think the graphics actually look pretty incredible if you think about it. And, this got a lot of cool people. It's got John Cena, it's got The Rock, it's got Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior. It's got a lot of great wrestlers in it, even like Drew McIntyre, some people that are still around today. So, keep that in mind as well. And I just think that this is one of the things that's fun about it, is that It doesn't take itself too seriously. It plays well to nostalgia. It also looks and just plays really, really great for an arcade wrestling game. Sort of reminds me of that old arcade wrestling game that used to be at like the movie theaters and arcades and stuff, the Royal Rumble game or whatever. But yeah, if you're a wrestling fan, I'm sure you probably have seen this game. And you know, for me, I love the sim wrestling games, the 2K games and stuff like that. But I really hope that one day they can add something like this to the backwards compatibility program. You know, one of the most, I think, hidden gem games of the Xbox 360 era might be Ninja Blade from a company called From Software. They went on to do great games like, Elden Ring, for example, and the Demon Souls games and things like that. But if you think about this, this was a console exclusive to the Xbox 360, and I think it still is, although it might have released on PC or whatever. But as far as console releases, I think it only ever came out on the 360. Never got a remaster, never got a remake, none of that stuff. But it's so weird, it's sort of like a bit of Devil May Cry with some Ninja Gaiden, again, I think that's something that a lot of people can come to appreciate. I think it'd be much more appreciated now. So that's why I think it would make a lot of sense to kind of make that game backwards compatible. Basically, you're kind of this ninja, and there's a virus, kind of Resident Evil feel, but you're more of a ninja going about it, attacking these monsters and things like that. Definitely has a great feel to it. It can be difficult at times, but it's not totally unforgiving, to be honest with you. So I always think that stuff like this would love a second chance via backwards compatibility. Spider-Man is all the rage, and so I'm doing another twofer, The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. These are some really fun games. They play pretty good, and I know there's a lot of Spider-Man games on the 360 that people wish were backwards compatible. Now, I don't have, some of the ones like Shattered Dimensions and things like that. Those are very, very expensive games. Even these games can run a little bit pricey, but I have these two, so I play them. And if you're an Xbox owner, and if you're only an Xbox owner, you can't play any Spider-Man games on anything right now, basically, because Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man, and they put those exclusively out on like PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4, etc., etc. So if you had these Spider-Man games backwards compatible, I think it would be tremendous for fans. I think they would probably run much better as well. They could do like the free enhancements on them and things like that. But the Amazing Spider-Man games are based off of the movies, kind of loosely. The Amazing Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield ones. Those weren't terrible movies, and the games themselves, I think, play pretty well, especially given that they're on Xbox 360 hardware. So I think a lot of people should kind of take that in mind if you're going to be playing them. And like I said, I would totally list the other like Shattered Dimensions and stuff like that on this list if I had them. Unfortunately, I don't, and they're quite expensive to pick up, and I've never really come across them at like yard sales or thrift stores or anything like that. So I'm guessing the people that own them, they pretty much know what they have. But these are fun games. Like I said, they look great, they play great for what they are. It'd be nice to have some Spider-Man games playable on an Xbox that's current, and like I said, these are just a lot of fun. And the superhero stuff, we used to get a lot more of it, and I miss it. I'm just going to be honest about it. I miss the superhero games that we used to get, and this was one that was, a couple of games that were really fun to play on the Xbox 360, and I would love for them to come back via backwards compatibility.
Nettie? Nettie!
He's cheating on us! I'm scared! Come on, Ned, move this thing!
I can't! It's a Geo!
There's no outrunning it. I was going to do it. A lot of you probably know I'm a huge Simpsons fan. Yeah, you're driving a Geo. So anyway, yeah, the Simpsons game is one that is highly underrated. I actually love this game. I thought it was so fun, so well done. I know it's completely different than like the other Simpsons game. This one's more that looks more like the Simpsons actual animation and things like that. So really a fantastic job. The voice acting, all that kind of stuff is right there. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of kind of fun to this game. If you're a Simpsons fan, all the references, all the kind of inside jokes, the comedy, all of it's there. So I think that's one of the things that really kind of drives people to enjoy this game. And one of the cool things about this game is it had a different cover depending on which platform you bought it on. So like Xbox 360 or I think PS3, these things had different covers, and so it can be fun to collect. Yeah, it's an expensive game now, but like I said, having these games backwards compatible could do a lot to make the games actually be less expensive in the long run. So if you're a Simpsons fan, yeah, play the game, and I do hope that it comes to backwards compatibility one day. And finally, I'm ending my list for this time anyway. I could probably do more of these, but I'm ending this one with the Incredible Hulk. Now, this was a really, really cool game to play on the Xbox 360. If you guys remember, there was an awesome Incredible Hulk game on the original Xbox with like a lot of destruction and destructible environments and things like that. This is sort of like that. It has like a lot of things that are quite destructible, and for me personally, I think that it's just one of the things that honestly that we don't see enough of anymore. Considering all the horsepower we get on these consoles and all the cool features we get with the consoles, why don't we get more destructible environments? I mean, if you're playing as the Incredible Hulk, you probably want there to be a lot of destructible environments and things like that. So I think that's where this sort of likes to come into play. But absolutely one of my favorite games, and I know it's not like highly rated or anything, but like I said, these superhero games are just a lot of fun to play through, and even though they get a little bit repetitive or whatever, I still think worthwhile, and would just nice to have all these games to be able to play playable backwards compatibility. So I'm sure a lot of you will probably agree with me. So there's my list. I hope that each and every one of you could enjoy it, or at least find a couple games in here that you agree with being backwards compatibility or wanting to be backwards compatible. Microsoft is a multiple $trillion company. They could work on more backwards compatible games at any time, but until then, it's just fun to kind of wish and kind of hope and do a cool little video about it, and hopefully you all agree. If you enjoyed my video, please leave a like, give me a thumbs up, and possibly consider subscribing. That would help out the channel tremendously. It helps it to get seen. Spread the word. Tell everybody. I'm having a good time doing these videos. It takes a little bit to actually put them together, so a little thumbs up goes a long way. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.